Okay, everybody. My name is Mark, and this is a Google Classroom on-ramp class. I'm going to try to keep it short, but if you go into the comment section of this video, you're going to see a doc. That doc will allow you to make a copy, and that's going to be my agenda. So I have 5 points I just want to walk you through to basically set up your Google Classroom for the first time. I'll go through the step-by-step approach to the agenda, explain the things as much as I can. But again, if you want to see that agenda, just click the link that's going to be in the description of this video. So first and foremost, the thing that you need to know right off the bat is how to get to a classroom. And what you want to do is, as I'm up here in my browser, I do classroom.google.com. Now, Google has great naming conventions: classroom.google.com, docs.google.com, slides.google.com. So if you put whatever you want to first, .google.com is going to take you there. So I'm already in my classroom. It's loading up my different classes. But for you to start your first one, you want to go all the way over to the right-hand side and look at that plus button. And that plus button is going to create or join a class. And obviously what we want to do is we want to create a new class. Okay, I'm going to give the class name a title. Let's just call this test class. Give it a section. Since I have 9 periods in my school day, this is period 1. Subject, let's call it social studies. And you can even assign a room number. Why you want this information up there is if you could see some of my classes in the background, it's going to be very clear what's going on here. So period 1, spring 2020, fall 2019, period 7, those things are kind of important. What my recommendation is that if you're a high school teacher or middle school teacher and you have multiple sections of the same class, you have one classroom per section of the course. Reason being, it's a lot easier to figure out and keep track of your students in your different classes than having your 30, 60, 90, 120 kids all into one classroom. So separate them into a different class. Secondly, if you're an elementary school teacher, you have two options. One, because you have a smaller group of kids, keep them in one classroom. Or two, what someone I worked with has experimented with and been successful is that for every subject you have a classroom. So you have a classroom for social studies, you have a classroom for math, you have a classroom for science. If you're that teacher who teaches multiple subjects in your classroom, but in this example, I'm just creating one, and that one is going to help us understand how to set some things up and how to communicate. So I hit the create button. It's going to take a couple of seconds. And in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I thought I had the magic going there. So we'll just wait a little bit. There it is. Okay. So here's my test class. So there are some features that we want to look at. And I'm going to focus on just these 3 tabs in this on-ramp class: the stream tab, the classwork tab, and the people tab. Now, first and foremost, with the people tab, this is where you're going to populate your class. So if you notice here, I am the teacher. If I have a co-teacher or someone else, I can invite that teacher. Teachers have the rights to post assignments, grade assignments, look at assignments, have basically the full power run the classroom. Do not make a student a teacher. Keep them separate. Down here, we have our students. Now, what a lot of teachers do who have been using Google Classroom is on the first day of school, they'll just sit there and they will post that code on the front of the board, on the smart board, and say, all right, guys, to enter my class, enter TX7CLLS. You see it right here highlighted. We don't have that luxury in our current situation. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a mass add. I'm going to hit this little guy over here. I'm going to invite students. It says type a name or an email. So what's going to happen is this is going to search the entire district's directory of all the students and all the staff. So if you have your list handy with you of your student roster for your one class or for one of your several sections of classes, once you type in a person's name, it's going to show up. I typed in my last name, and because I've emailed Amanda Garon and my mother worked for the district and stuff like that, that's what it is. So what I'll do is I could add a person. What you want to do is do this for every single person in your class. And then what you're going to do is you're going to hit invite. Okay. Oh, can't invite a student from this outside the domain. So let me just go invite Olga and see how that works. And there it is. So you notice right now it's going to say, hey, someone's invited. You just have to wait. You're going to sit there and send out that mass list. Now, remember, you're probably not the first person to use Google Classroom with your students. So they're used to this procedure. They're probably going to get an email or alert on their phone that they've been added to the class. They're going to check that email or check that alert and add themselves to your class. It's going to happen naturally. Okay. What will also happen is that once the student accepts the invite, you'll have the opportunity to also invite a guardian. So because this is a test class, I can't really show you this. I'm going to pop over to another class just so that you understand it. So let's go to a short computer club. All right. I go to people. Okay. If you see here, I have students and then I have invite guardians. So one of two things can happen. The student can get on the classroom and send it to their parents, or what you can do is you could actually type the parents' email and enter it in. So if you have parents that want to really know what's involved, what's going on in their kids' classes, when you invite them as a guardian, what they'll do is they'll get a email at the end of every single week of what's actually being posted in the classroom, not your announcements, but anything that's there, any work that any review that is missing, any of that stuff, they're going to get as like an end of week summary. So you might have a couple of parents offhand that you may know. Go into Power School, get their email address, put them in there, and just invite them right off the bat. What a nice thing that happens here is in this people tab, you have all your students, you have all your parents. So if I go over here and I click my little snowman, all right, I could actually email a student or I could email a guardian. And that's it'll open up Gmail for me and I can just fire off my email. I don't have to go anywhere else to search for some things. But I just wanted to clarify this. Parents are guardians only by an invite. They're not here automatically. You can add them yourself or the student can add them. All right. When you're communicating with your students in the classroom, the students are getting it every single time you do something. The guardians only get it at the end of the week in a weekly summary. So just make sure you're aware of that. Now, a little side note, if you want to make life a little bit easier for yourself when it comes to parents as well, I'm going to open up a new tab. I'm going to type in contacts.google.com. All right. In contacts, I could create a label. I'm down here on the left-hand side. You kind of see where my mouse is. I could create a label. With that label, I could type in any single name. So I could call it, say, period 1 parents. So now when I save that, I could then enter email addresses into my contacts, add them to that label, period 1 parents, so that when I send an email, I just type in period 1 parents, and that entire list will show up. So I'll show you an example here. I have a label that's my social studies department, and these are all the teachers in my social studies department. So when I go to my mail, it'll take a second to load up, and I hit compose. There we go. And I type in social studies department, not students. It's automatically going to populate with the people in my list. So again, that's another way to possibly, do a mass contact if our purpose is to keep in contact with our students and possibly with our parents. You're going to have the option with the invite guardian section of the People's tab in Classroom, or you're going to have the option of creating a contact list in Google Contacts. All right. So that's the People tab. And the People tab is where you want to start first because that's where you're going to do your mass ads. Let me just get back to my demo classroom again. All right. The second tab is the Classwork tab. So here you could assign your review to your class. You could create review and questions. But where I want to start off first is this idea of topics, because topics are a way to organize your work. So an example, I'm going to hit the create button, and we're going to get into one or two of these options in a little bit, but I go to topic. Let's call this topic week of March 23rd. What that means is that when I actually put items in here for review, I could assign it to the week of March 23rd topic. Well, I could create another topic, week of March 30th. So if I have this little categorization, if I have to communicate with students of where to find something or parents where to tell their students to find something, I'm going to tell them, go to the Classwork tab and look under week of March 30th. Go to the Classroom tab and look under week of March 23rd. Now, some people might consider doing this. If I were to go to rename, I'm not going to call it the week of March 30th. I'm going to call it chapter 8. All right. You're going to figure out your own naming conventions, but it's a great way to organize. And if you notice right here on the left hand side, you're going to see that as like a quick link. With me, if I'm using Classroom for the entire year, I have multiple units and multiple assignments. So over here on this side, the kids know it's a quick click and find, or you go quick click and find. So topics is really important. And then on top of that, lastly, if I want to, I could rearrange, just click and drag for order of importance. And therefore, if I have like, my week is in the wrong spot, just drag my week up to the top so the kids see that that's the first thing that they see. Right. The second thing in our classwork tab is we're going to look at something called material. Okay. Material is something to post in a classroom that does not have a due date, that is not going to be assigned a grade. It's just there for a resource. So we're going to call this test material. This is a resource for class. And I could add any file from my Google Drive. They're not going to be able to edit it. They're not going to get their own copy. This is just for them to view. I could add a link to a website. I could upload a file like a PDF file or an image from my computer. Or if I want to, and that's what I'm going to use for an example, I could also attach a YouTube video. So one of a favorite social studies sites is called Crash Course. And I need to go to Crash Course AP Government. Be a little bit more specific. And, oh, there it is. That's what I wanted. Presidential power. Add. Hey, let me add another one. Because this resource is just going to be all about presidents. So Crash Course Presidents. Let's see what else they have. Presidential powers too. Perfect. All right. Now what happens is I could then, as I call this presidential power, go over to the right side and I could say, who is this for? Now, if you notice, when I click the down arrow, I could actually assign this to multiple classes. So I told you before that I would, recommend that you have multiple classes for your multiple sections. If you make one post, you go to this for section, you can actually check off multiple classes. And when you hit post, they'll all get it at the same time. Additionally, if I just want to go to my single class, all right, though I don't really have any students right now, I could sit there and say, I don't want to give it to all my students, and I could give it to an individual student, 5 students, 10 students, 15 students. Some of you might have tiers in your class, different groups that you're kind of working with. So I could assign this material to just a certain amount of people within a specific class. They only get to see it. Nobody else does. So it's a nice way to differentiate too, and the other kids are not exposed to other students' differentiated groups. So that's the for section. What class you do for multiple classes, or all students or some students. And lastly, right here's the topic. Well, I want it for the week of March 23rd. Done. So when I post this, it's going to wind up in the topic of week of March 23rd. Students can click on it and they'll have some YouTube videos. The last thing I'm going to do is go right up to this upper right-hand corner to post. Once I post, an alert is going to be sent to the app. An email is going to be generated to the student to say, hey, there's something on the classroom. It's material. This is what the description is. Do something with it. But if we look at this down arrow and I click on this down arrow, I'm going to see post, schedule, save draft, or discard draft. Obviously, discard draft is to get rid of the post. Maybe I'm not ready to post this yet. I still want to do some work on it. I could just save it. When I save the draft, it means that it's not posted. I could just go in there and edit whenever I want to. I could also do schedule. Now, this is a neat little thing. When I do schedule, I can actually pick a date and a time to post. So if you're doing some work in your office hours and you want to sit there and say, hey, I've done my work and I want to make sure that something gets put out on Monday, something gets put out on Wednesday, something gets put out on Friday. Okay. It's Friday and I want to post something for next week. You schedule the post. Google Classroom is going to automatically post it at the specific time that you desired. All right. Right now, I'm just going to post the assignment. And you notice right there, week of March 23rd, there's my material called Presidential Power. When I click on that, this is a resource for class. And there are my 2 videos that I could click on and play immediately within my Google Classroom. Okay. So again, material is just stuff that's handed out, never really meant to return. Consider it like your bookshelf in the classroom. Kids can go there, use it as a resource. The other basic option that we have for our Onramp class is a assignment. All right. This thing is very, very similar. It's the title. So assignment. And this is what I would like you to review this week. Now what I could do is I could add files. Same thing. But with an assignment, it's going to be just like you do in a classroom. So if you have 25 students and you have 25 things to hand out, I'm going to add an assignment. I don't want students to view the file because I want to work on it. I don't want them to edit a file. Do not choose the second option. That means that all your students can have access to the same file. It's chaos. What I want to do is I want to make a copy for each student. What that means is that I am now handing out 25 or 30 assignments of this one piece of paper, just like you do in your normal classroom. So make a copy for each student is going to give them their own file that they could type in, edit, and then turn into you so that you could look at later. That's how it works. So the main thing that you want to make sure you do is do not do view file, do not do edit file, make a copy for each student. I could keep on adding things. If I want to add, watch this video, then answer these questions, I could add a YouTube video. Go to this website and read this article. But the work I want them to turn back into me, I want to make sure that it's a Google Doc and it's going to make a copy for each student. Same thing over here. I could select a class or multiple classes. I can do all my students or just a couple of students. Obviously, this is going to be ungraded because we're not doing any grading. This is review work only at this point. I could say a date of an expectation where I want to kind of get it turned into me so I could kind of see their progress. I could even put a time if I wanted to, up until the minute. And then lastly, I could select a topic. So this time I'm just going to do chapter 8. And instead of assigning it, you know what? I still have to do a little bit of work on it. I'm going to save the draft. So you notice right here, chapter 8, there's our assignment and there's the draft. If I ever want to change anything, I just click on the snowman, those 3 dots. What does this allow me to do? Edit the assignment or delete it. Same thing here, edit or delete. And then obviously with this, if you put it in the wrong spot, you can just drag and drop and put it where you need to go. So the most powerful tab here is the Classwork tab. This is where all the organization is going to happen. Oh, by the way, that little thing, Google Calendar, that's going to link you. It's going to show you all the assignments and what they're due on what day. So you kind of know what to kind of check on. All right. So that's the Classwork tab. That's the most important one. When it comes to naming your assignments, make sure they're clear. Obviously, assignment and presidential power aren't really good. What you could do is if you want to post review for the week, maybe you change your naming convention and maybe you call one thing Monday. I'm just going to save it as a draft. And maybe you call the next thing you're going to post Wednesday. In that manner, the students are going to know how to follow in the week of March 23rd. What do I do every day, every other day, etc. They're going to see a due date of when if you set an expectation on that, but at least it's going to be a process and a logical organization of things. And if you have to have a conversation with the parents, you can tell the parents, tell your student, go to the Classwork page, go to week of March 23rd, and the review I want them to do is called Wednesday, blah, 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 and they'll be okay. Now, the last tab I want to show you is the stream tab. I leave it for last because it could be a little bit crazy. All the stream tab is essentially a feed. Now, I've only done one thing here. I've only posted one new material. But a person who uses a Google Classroom for an entire year or semester has a lot of things that are posted. So you could almost like stream infinitely like you would do on Facebook or Instagram or any type of social media. The stream is going to have all the posts. Where you could use a stream to communicate with your students is simple. I go here. Again, I can select one class or several classes. All my students are individual students. And this is just for an announcement. Please check the classroom on Thursday for an update. Same thing, I could add things if I wanted to, a file, a link, a video, etc. I could post, I could schedule, I could save a draft. But what this is this is just to be like a shout out. So this is going to, again, send an alert, send an email to the students about what's going on. Parents do not get announcements. Parents will get a summary if they're an invited guardian of the classwork and materials posted at the end of the week. They won't get these general announcements. So, if a parent's saying, well, what's going on there, the student's going to know what's on there, not the parent. But again, that's what it is. They have this as the first page because of social media. They're used to just kind of scrolling. But in my opinion, the best thing to do is to just always have the kids focus on the classwork page because there's the organization of everything that you want. Okay. Lastly, when it comes to communication, a couple different ways to communicate. I just want to show you in the Google Classroom how to communicate. First and foremost, I showed you the people tab. When it comes to the student, what you can do is you can actually click on the snowman over here. My mouse is obviously Okukaran isn't invited just yet. And you could email the student directly. You could email the parent directly. If a student, I'm just going to post a announcement. If a student posts something as a class comment, if you hit plus and enter their email address and write a comment, it's going to automatically generate an email to that student. It's going to alert the student that you responded to that student, and they're going to come back to the classroom and they're going to see that. So you could direct an email through the people tab. You could sit there in the plus and then entering the email address of the student. You could then send it directly to them. The reason why Google Classroom leaves this public is because you might have written something that the entire class should probably learn from your announcement, but you're going to give that little nudge to a student who actually was kind enough to write a comment in the classroom. So plus, and as you start typing the student's last name, it's going to show up as an email, and then you're good to go. All right. Lastly, when you start getting to classwork assignments, you're going to be able to actually go into the assignments, look at the student's review work, and you could actually do comments in there. So if our goal is to communicate with students moving forward, there are plenty of ways to do it in the classroom. You can do it through a direct email in the people tab. You can do it with doing a plus and the email in the stream tab, or when they start returning or doing review work, if you're going to assign some review work for them, they're going to see it. And then you're going to have the opportunity to kind of write a message back there once you get to that. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope it wasn't too long. And I will have some additional videos coming up in the next couple of days. Have a good day.